Good evening or good afternoon, irrespective of where you are in the world. We're glad that you are here with us and you are following us and enjoying another lecture in our weekly series of lectures provided to you by the Spiritist Federation of the U.S. Today we're going to have a very interesting lecture based on the gospel. Do not place the light under the bushel. And who's going to be presenting for us is our dear friend, Marcia Trajano. Hello, Marcia. How are you?
I'm good. How are you?
Pretty good. Actually, Marcia. I've known you for a long time, but I can't pronounce your name, Marcia Trajano. So, Marcia, thank you for being with us. And let's talk a little bit about what you've been up to. So, Marcia Trajano, she's a PMP, a certified project manager. She is one of the founders of this Christian Spiritist community of Atlanta. Actually, the organization that I volunteer with, believe it or not, and a former board member of the U.S. Spiritist Federation. She has been a Spiritist for 20 years and has participated in giving talks and leading study groups in English and Portuguese. She has a master's degree in management of technology and the project management professional certification, like we mentioned before. Marcia currently works in the field of project management. Again, Marcia, welcome. Looking forward to a very interesting lecture with a very important topic with lots of intricacies, and I'm pretty sure you're going to guide us through us during the conversation. And to kick it off, let's say our initial prayer. Dear Lord, thank you for the opportunity for us to be here. And we've been studying the gospel for so many years, not only in this reincarnation, but in our previous experiences here on earth. Whenever we are reminded of the important topics like the one we're going to study this morning, it's also so important, it's so fundamental for us to understand how much we still have to internalize and to truly apply everything that we've been learned from the Gospels, from Jesus, from Spiritism, and to apply it into our daily lives. Bless us during this lecture. Bless our lecturer, and may we have our minds and hearts open to better receive the message that will be directed to us. So be it. Marcia, you have the floor.
Thank you. Thank you so much, Glaucio. Good to see you here now that we're all in isolation, but it's good to share this space, this time together. Glaucio, as he said, he is a good friend, and both of us have worked with the Christian Community Spiritists of Atlanta. I want to thank you, Glaucio, and thank you, the U.S. Spiritist Federation, for this opportunity to be here. And I want to thank you, all of you, who chose to be here with us today, to chose to listen to this Spiritist talk. And wherever you are, good morning, good afternoon, or good night. I am so happy to spend just a few minutes discussing those words that were quite inspiring, and they come from the New Testament. So specifically, the "do not hide the light under bushel" comes from Matthew 5:14 and Luke 8:16. And as I said, my goal in the next few minutes is to share some points. It's truly intricate, Glaucio. You mentioned that the layers and layers and layers of interpretation that you get from such a small few words, right? And just want us to at least get some of the points that were very salient to me. And just wanted to say the message, if we have time, I don't know if we will, but we'll also discuss some of the topics in the 24th chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism. That chapter has the same title, "Do Not Hide Light Under a Bushel." And just as a reminder, if you don't know, the Gospel according to Spiritism was first published in French in France in 1864 by Allan Kardec. It is a book that relates the teachings of Jesus with Spiritism. So, in so many words, this book, this amazing book, breaks down those very important teachings that Jesus brought to us and enlightened us. And I say us, all of us, but I specifically talk to those of us that say, I am a Spiritist. So it enlightened us, Spiritist, from a very religious, philosophical perspective. Right? So, as you know, this is just one of the 5 foundational books published by Allan Kardec, and those were all published in the second half of 19th century. Why do I say that? Because of the message biblical 2,000 years ago, and we're now talking about those foundational books written 150 plus years ago. So with that, I'm going to say that let's go to the next slide. And I'm really excited that I can share the slides in this new way. Thank you, thank you. But we talk here, as I said, there's the parable, right? The light under a bushel. And as I mentioned before, though they're just 2 of many references, but those 2 biblical references from Matthew and Luke, and they bring to us the few words. I put it there in the slides. You don't need to read it. I can read for you, but it's just such a huge message in so few words. So if I read Matthew said in that chapter 5, neither do men light a candle and put it under a bushel, but on a candlestick, and give it light unto all there are in the house. So, oh boy, if we stop here, we can spend pretty much the next hour talking about what did Matthew mean when he talked about man, us, light a candle, put it under a bushel. So man, candle, bushel, candlestick, and house. What are all those words mean, and how can we really bring forth, highlight those meanings to us in, again, a very meaningful manner? So let's do that. Question for all of you: what in the world was Jesus talking about? So I'm going to try, and I can't So if someone could proceed to slide 3, please. I'm sorry, can someone move the slide to the next one for me? All right, if not, I cannot move, so forgive me, it's just a slide with what we mean by candle, which is really that first level of references, right? What in the world is a candle? I'm really upset that I cannot move the slide anymore. It's something that I had technical difficulties early today, so my apologies. The candle, right? Very high level. It was a tool used in the time of Jesus. So 2,000 years ago, Middle East, Palestine. What is a candle? Candle is that often made of clay, right? It's a container. And it really means the light that can be brought into a home 2,000 years ago to light and take away the darkness that was represented. So the darkness of life, right? And I just want to say, let's start thinking and put that in our minds. The candle is the light that it shines away, takes away the darkness of life, especially in our own light, in our own lives. So second meaning can be the spirit of truth and how it is the light that is lit in us, in our lives, in this incarnation, in this journey that we embarked to become, to grow, to become what we can be, right? And to evolve as immortal souls, immortal spirits. So back to the lamp, old Palestine, the candle used at the time was an oil lamp. And it is that object, and I put my words here, that it shows that it's oil-based, with oil being the fuel source to produce light continuously over a period of time, often a full night, right? The use of oil lamps, and why it's important for us to stop here, is that interesting that it started thousands of years ago, and it actually continues to be used to our days. How does it work? Well, just like our modern day candles, except that it's not wax, but oil, which is liquid in a container, and simply a wick that sits in the oil. Once I light the wick, it burns the oil as it's drawn through the wick. Make sense? We can think of maybe Aladdin's genie lamp. It's a little bit of what could be a candle at the time. It's a small container, as I said. You put oil, you put the wick, you turn on the light, just like you turn on the light in your homes today at night. And I just want to say, yes, we are spoiled. We just flip the switch. We don't have to do anything else. But at the time, it would be placed and high, right? Either hung or in a support mechanism, so that it would ensure our maximum ability to see in the dark during the night. The candle or candlestick would be placed in that support made of wood in the house. So if we can go to the next our next page. The bushel is many people don't understand what is a bushel. When I think of bushel, I think of maybe something that is made of textile, right, or a basket. But a bushel at the time was made out of clay, so hard, or even metal, right? It was used to measure things. So, for example, a bushel of oil would be 35 liters, about 10 gallons, and a bushel of wheat would be about 60 pounds. So it's a measure, it's a container that measures a volume that translates in different type of weight, right? The tradition of the time was that for the home to put that bushel, or put the lamp, I'm sorry, under the bushel when not in use. Um, can you imagine why would I do that? Because I imagine, I didn't see any source to this, that the lamp being made out of clay is very fragile. Right? So when you're not used, it may have some residue of oil, or not used all the oil. You put the bushel that was the measure of how much you're going to purchase, for example, or be giving the oil. But the container itself, you put it over it and you protect it. But at the same time, the consequence of putting that is that the house will be dark if you do that, for example, when you go to sleep. So it's very important. And if you can go to the next slide, please. And I wanted to talk a little bit. I'm going to spend a little bit of time here, because that's where this chapter, this chapter of the book, but the parable itself of to not hide the light under the bushel, is really spoke to me, right? It's the idea that we are here with a mission. What is that mission? A mission of light. And we can ponder, we can think, why did Jesus tell us to, he stopped to say, no one lights a candle to put under the bushel. And I can see Jesus with his hand, he didn't, but I can see that in my mind's eyes. No one does that. So why are you doing that? Well, simply put, Jesus is really letting us know, he's alerting us, right? He's giving us a cautionary tale about the potentiality, right, that exists in that source of light, the candle. And of course, as I said, what is it? It is the idea that once you understand, once the light of spiritual truth is contained in spiritism. It's easy for me to have access to those spiritual truth, but it's not only exclusive of spiritism, that it's the spiritual sacred truth that is in all of us, right? Once we do understand that, once we access those learnings, and that spiritual truth is awakened within ourselves, we should not hide it. We should not let our house be dark again. So when we think about those things, and that's where, again, I I read this chapter, I reread this chapter, I talked about this chapter, and when I reread it once again, it just touched me for such a strong, moment, just a strong, just Marcia. Do you see what I'm telling you? And I wanted to say the first questions that came to my mind was, what is spiritism, right? Just sorry. I'm not sure if you can hear me, but I will continue until you tell me. Okay, Got it. Thank you. Thank you, Glaucio. So I am going blind. I don't see you. My apologies. My technical difficulties just keep going above. So my deep apologies. But this is importance here is to talk about the message, right? So the first thing that came to my mind as I was rereading this beautiful chapter 24 of the Gospel According to Spiritism, those questions were, right? What is your mission? What is my mission? What is our mission? Why is Jesus giving this invitation in the form of an alert? Is he inviting us to a mission? And if we try to answer those questions literally, right, which is put the candle in that candlestick up high so that all that those of us who enter our house can see. Then I start to ask again, maybe what do we need to learn or do so that we can light, shine the light within us? That's my other question. Why do we need to do that? What are the shadows, or if I may be very literal here, the darkness that I must shed light, we must shed light? What are we going through right now that hinders this topic even important? And I ask you, as I ask myself, what's going on? What's going on in our planet? What is going on? I can even say the Western Hemisphere, in the US, in our home, within us. What's going on? Have you and I lost our sense of self, lost our faith? Do we know when this light, this night that needs light, will end? Maybe I can even ask, is this darkness translated as our negativity or our disillusion with life? Right? And I may say, this is my interpretation, that the night perhaps represent all that we're going through right now. We are all going through some element of pain, of difficulty, of uncertainty, of fear, of anxiety, right? And at this moment, especially now in the past 2+ years, no, two, sorry, almost 2 years, right? We all are going through this thing that has been potentialized or augmented by the pandemic. Oh, can we shine light in this time of darkness? Yeah. We can be that light, right? We can bring our candle, which is the comforting message and hope that Spiritism gives to us. We can bring it all high. We can indeed translate, maybe like the Gospel According to Spiritism does, those words, the message that's so powerful in so few words, into the message that we have been given about our own immortality. And we can transcend the limits that perhaps our own faith may have with that. Wow, that is a lot there, right? But anyways, this parable takes the idea that perhaps, right? Perhaps, remember again, I see Jesus pointing his finger to me. Perhaps we're not shining the light, or perhaps even worse, we either are in the process of extinguishing that flame in the light, or have already done so, that our love in action, and I don't say charity, I like to say love in action, or our ability to give, our ability to help the other. And it's important for us to understand that maybe let's think in terms of what's going on, right? Maybe at this time, those constraints that have been imposed to us, those constraints have really led us to stop the source of light, right? And our own passive acceptance of the new status quo, this new way of working, the new, right? The new norm of living behind the computer screen, that may lead to inaction. So I imagine, for example, that the U.S. Spiritist Federation may already have some data points. Glaucia, I may even, if you have that information, you may share later. But maybe there's some data points available on the number, as an example, of Spiritist centers in the U.S. that have either closed or, at a minimum, limit the breadth of the work that it previously did. Right? As a consequence, the other side of it is the engagement of many that would go to a Spiritist center, for example, are limited to now watch presentations like this one, this discussion, or a study group. But that's a limit in terms of how can I shine the light, because it is constrained by the words, not the action, right? So the invitation, I imagine, is that perhaps we must maintain, now that things have changed, that we are limiting our ability to be light, and we can be light by hugging someone, right? To comforting through our words, but our wisdom, our knowledge, but also our love. And it is really this invitation to maintain our own candle shining true, shining bright. How can we do this? How can we do our own part to diminish the darkness that all of us are going through? And let us embrace all. Let us spread love. Let us attack the moments that we're going through with fears, anxiety, etc., with hope and with faith. And it's very important to remember, this invitation is a 2,000-year-old invitation that is now quite urgent, and is specifically even more urgent since 2020. So if we go to the next slide, Glaucia, please, if you don't mind. If we look into the book, The Way, the Truth, and the Life, it was written by Emmanuel. Emmanuel is the spiritual author, right? And there was a work, a beautiful work, that is psychographed by Francisco Cândido Xavier, known for many of us by Chico Xavier. And it's a book that is in English, and it's accessible. You can buy it today just with a click of a button, and it brings about 180 chapters. And those chapters, it's really cool because it's really chapters that help us again to understand the Christian principles, right? And I would say even the most important Christian principles, and how those principles excuse me, will lead us to something that is very important, which is our inner transformation. Right? The last chapter specifically talks about being that light, right? So again, Matthew, I already said, 5:15, he said, in the same way, let your light shine before others, that they may see your good deeds and glorify your Father in heaven. Right? In the same way, let your light shine before others, so that they may see your good, or your action, right? Deeds, and glorify your Father in heaven. So it's very important. I was talking not so long ago about the idea that after John the Baptist, right, God brought through with Jesus is no longer God, but it's our Father. So our Father who is in heaven, that's a such important person in our lives, so close to us, our Father, and we, through our actions, we glorify God through the good deeds, and we shine our light. But then again, Marcia, you were talking about it already, right? It's hard to act. Basically, for the past 2 years, we are confined in isolation, some more than others, and very difficult indeed. I miss the ability to go to, for example, a Spiritist center. I do, more than you ever imagine. But so in that chapter, Emmanuel, very so many years ago, brings us the idea that well, sometimes the dimension of action, right, which is giving, it's helping, working for a cause, how can it be translated to when we cannot do that? And Emmanuel reminds us that our home, who we are, right, ourselves, however small that reach may be, and we talk about here, I may know 2 people, I may have contact with 3 people, 4 people, 10. It's a very small reach, right? And it doesn't matter, Emmanuel tells us. However small our reach may be, we can still shine the light. And he reminds us that we do that through joy, through happiness. And by doing this, we shed that light, we shine that light to shed the darkness of anxiety, right? And that is a pervasive sense of anxiety that's surrounding all of us right now. We cannot diminish the impact of what we're going through since 2020, right? So he also reminds us something that's very, my goodness, so true to today. He reminds us that darkness can also be not just a result of those fears, anxieties, and uncertainties, but the result of ignorance. And he says that when that ignorance, as in lack of accessing and really understanding, right? Really understanding the words, those principles that were given to us so well, so in a way that it's internalized, right? He's saying that our reasoning, our emotions, our consciousness can start to be obfuscated, right? It can start to be hidden. So again, one more time, the message here is one that tells us that it is truly, truly urgent, and it is critical, and it is necessary that we shine our own light. And when we do that, our own inner self needs to shine bright, right? And he says when we shine bright, and we shine bright, just remembering, right? Reminding all of us, we shine bright when we have joy, right? When we are happy, when we can love ourselves, we can love the others. Even when we cannot put that love in action with work, we can shine by our own inner transformation. And it's so important, right, to understand what he's saying, because when we do that, we shine so bright that our religion, right, our connection, how we are indeed in synchronicity with our Father and all the beneficent spirits, the spirits of light, also come to us in resonance with our sense of being light, and we can allow no longer darkness to enter us. We can allow no longer anxiety and fears and diminished reasoning and diminished consciousness to enter us. I stopped to say that we may stop saying, Marcia, did Emmanuel tell us that sometimes we need somebody else to shine their light, right? Did Emmanuel say that sometimes we need to go to somebody else's house in the middle of the night and there is a candle up high so that we can get a little bit light? You'd better bet he did. Right? He did. He mentioned that we may walk with somebody else's light, and they may shine their light onto us. True. But Emmanuel, also reminds us that at some point in that chapter, it's a very small chapter, by the way, he says that our journeys, right, may bifurcate or go different ways, or whatever is the trigger to move us away from that source of light, which means at that point, we need to have the ability to again shine our own light. So the invitation keeps coming back, regardless of who's saying, is it Luke, is it Matthew, is it Jesus, is it Emmanuel? We're all saying the same thing. We need to be light. And it's interesting, just a little of words for us to ponder, and I do believe I have 10 more minutes, so we're good, is that at some point, we need to think that going back to the parable, right, that I mentioned to you that we have met, that's us, we talked about it, we talked about the candle, we talked about the bushel, but we missed the wick and the oil. So Emmanuel reminds us that it's good to think in terms of just to again to ponder a little bit what is the meaning of those elements put in this small parable. And he says the wick, right? The wick, it's just something small, but is an allusion or a metaphor for our will to do something, our commitment to do something, okay? And Emmanuel also mentioned the oil, right, that you put. So I put my two hands here. So it's a small container, often made of clay, right? And you put oil, and then you put this wick that is immersed in the oil and wicks the oil to burn it. And so the oil is a metaphor for what propels us to do the actual service. It's the muscle, right? We're going to do it. And so the interesting here is for us to think about it. the wick, as you light it and wicks the oil, it also consumes itself, right? The oil that is the fuel, the what propels us to actually be light, right? It also is consumed as it shines light. So it's very important for us to think also that as we, right, as we do become light, we are consuming who we are. And when you read that, you go like, oh my gosh, no, I don't want, I want to protect myself. I don't want to be consumed. What are you talking about? And we just stop a little bit to say, it is really our sacrifice, right? We give ourselves so we are light. We give our knowledge, so we're light. We give our love, so we are light. And in that sacrifice, and it's very important that we look at the word to sacrifice, is to turn sacred. And that's the story of through the sacrifice in a journey that I cannot actually do goods. I need to look into myself in this journey of inner transformation, right? And I need to look at myself and I need to sacrifice. And some of us would call, I can sacrifice my ego, and we can talk about it now or later, but I need to sacrifice by looking the God within me, the light within me, so that I can comfort myself, I can love myself, I can comfort the other, and I can really be light. And just to perhaps I want to stop early, right? Is the issue here is that if we learn our choice to study, to learn, to seek, right? If we reach out to learn, we have access to this beautiful light that is Spiritism. It's those principles that Jesus brings to us, and Spiritism just dissects it and makes it so consumable, right? So we have access to the light, and as we become the candle, that if you think in terms, the candle is not the light, the candle holds the light, right? As we can become the repository of the potential of light, but we either don't light our light, or we hide that potentiality for bringing light, which is we limit our access to that knowledge, to that comforting area that Spiritism gives to us, to words, without being able to truly understand the action that is to provide comfort. And those actions can be a smile, a phone call, a text message. Technology is wonderful in that way, right? If we don't provide the comfort to others the way that we can, and if we don't really look into the inner sanctum of ourselves and look for the light that we are, we will indeed be hiding the light under the bushel. So just to echo Emmanuel's words, I want to ask all of us to be light. Let us shine light in our own sense of love, self-love, self-awareness, self-education, and let us sacrifice all that we are into our old selves, sacrifice our old selves so that we can become, as I said before, the word implies, sacred or godlike, divine. So with that, I would like to to stop here. Glaucio, I'm going to try to fix my problem, my technical problem. So if you don't see me or if you look at me looking crazy, it's because I'm trying to get back to be able to see you. Okay, but thank you, everyone.
Yeah, it's funny. Talking about technical problems, I was on mute. So, Marcia, we can see you and we can hear you quite well.
Awesome. Thank you. Appreciate it. And I'm trying my best here.
So you ready to take some questions?
Yes, and you have to perhaps tell me a couple of times before I can comprehend because I cannot see you. Go ahead, sir.
All right. Could we be dealing with new souls or souls that are not very advanced in this earth life? They may not be ready for these teachings.
Yes, thank you. Who said that? Do you know? This is a very good.
Paula Craig.
Hi, Paula. Thank you. So, well, on one hand, we could, right? We could be dealing as when you talk about spiritual growth, how we evolve as spirit, as immortal spirits. We don't know how many, but we are not brand new today. This is, and I like to joke. I like to joke that this may be my 10,000th incarnation, and this is the best of me, but I have another, who knows, another 5,000 incarnations to be able to understand what I need to be next. But this is very important, Paula, because this chapter speaks exactly to that. In fact, the next when he speaks of to the light, not hide the light under the bushel. In that chapter, the apostles asks, Master, Master, you talked about shine the light really high, and yet you speak in parables. What's up with that? Just joking. They didn't talk about this with Jesus, but but the thought is in the entire book, Paula, the chapter, it's this what I call the paradox, right? Because then the next one would be, for example, do not speak the Gentiles, do not. So there's all those things. You're saying to shine high, just light way up high, and yet you're not. Tell us again. And the few things that come to mind, and I hope I'm not too verbose here, Paula, but the idea number one is with this chapter of the Gospel according to Spiritism comes the teachings that Jesus spoke in parables to perhaps those souls that you're attributing to that may not be as aware as some others are to the teaching, to the principles, right? The guiding principles that Jesus was bringing to us. And so he brought at the level that people were able to pick up. And I say, well, this is over 2,000-year-old, right? A 2,000-year-old message. And look how critical and urgent and significant to today's, right? And we're just now, maybe this is about me, Marcia, so forgive me for implying, but for me, I hear a very, very critical, urgent message. So for me, it has taken me this long journey, but the idea is that he said to the apostles, those closest to him, he did not speak in parables. He was quite direct. So I think it's important for us to understand that we may need to speak at the level of the person that needs to receive. Why am I saying this? Goes back to Emmanuel. When we look at being light, it starts with finding joy within yourself, right? And as we shed that light within ourselves, where it's quote unquote, and forgive the word, but quote unquote contagious, right? Everything we touch becomes light. We're able to bring that energy that no matter if you're in our terms, a 2-year-old or a 95-year-old, you can find comfort in our light. So from that perspective, and I hope it has brought the answer to your question, Paula. If not, let me know. We can talk further.
You know, Marcia, you said something that that struck a chord within me. You mentioned that, hey, this is the best version of me, right? And sometimes we get shy, we act shy because we think, oh, who am I to help somebody? Who am I to shine my light? Well, this may
Yeah.
not be the brightest light there is in the universe, but this is the best light that I can offer, right?
Yeah, that's awesome, Glossio. And I always like the metaphor. And of course, we're here talking about a candle, right? That it's there. And I keep thinking, my gosh, again, I said this before, we are spoiled. If we want to turn on light, we just go to the light switch, right? And if we want to light a candle, and a candle is such a strong metaphor to me, just maybe because we understand the manipulation, mechanical manipulation of light. But if you go into the darkest, let's pretend we're talking, I don't know, let's think. The largest cathedral that you ever been. I keep thinking maybe Milan, right? The Cathedral of Milan, that's enormous, ginormous place. If everything is dark and you bring one candle, your candle, that little flame, that little pilot, right? That's the only source, but it's enough. But Glaucio comes close to me, and now I am the source of light that can not only be his source, but shine, be the sparkle, the beginning, the flame that ignites his light, his candle to be lit. We don't divide, we double, and so on and so forth. So that metaphor, Glaucio, I'm a small, and this is again, this is the best version of me, and that's all I can do. But as we think of us lighting others' candles as their own source of light, it grows and it becomes truly a movement. I think I'm ready for the next question, and
Oh,
I don't
yeah.
see it,
It's
Glaucio, so
coming
my
up.
apologies. Yeah.
Don't worry, it's coming up right now. How can we live by our values when we are in an environment that is hostile to our beliefs?
Oh, this is such an important question. Who said that? Can you see?
Uh, yeah, actually, that one came from me.
Oh, okay. There's very good. So,
I can
so
ask questions too, right? I mean, it's fair game.
yes. So, in a society of disbelief, right? And I think this is incredible, Glaucia, when we listen to Emmanuel's words, right? He did say that the darkness, and of course darkness metaphorically speaking, but he reflects upon fears and anxieties, right? And that can really, that darkness can be a veil into our own source of light. And he speaks specifically to our own sense of rational thinking, our reasoning. And as he said that in reading this book, right, his last chapter 180, we start to see that we are living that, right? We are living a society that, my goodness, sources of truth are everywhere. Somebody joking, and this is truly a joke, so my apologies. This is joking with young kids, by the way. Somebody was asking this kid, right? How can I don't understand God. You say God is omniscient, right? Knows everything. God is everywhere and knows even what I don't know. I don't understand God. And somebody told this kid, oh, it's Google. God is Google, because before you even type your questions, is already with artificial intelligence telling what you're actually going to type, right, in the search, and he knows it all. And it's as a joke, of course. God is not Google. Google is not God, but it's a very interesting way to see in today's society the access of tools and technologies. It prevails. This youngest generation has that ability to just seek, and in the libraries, no longer of Alexandria as a treasure, but the libraries of the world are contained with a couple of clicks. And knowledge is everywhere, but it's really no longer a single source of truth. Therefore, there is misinformation. And when you talk about the capability, and I don't know what's going to happen next, right? But the capability to match these the ability for anyone, me, you, anyone else, to create misinformation, right? But to with the access to in the access to misinformation, to a moment that we're going through, that we don't know the impact of what we're going through collectively in each person's home, right? I don't know yet the data on loss of jobs, how children are no longer being able to develop their social, right, that emotion intelligence through social. I don't know what is the impact to, for example, to the rate of domestic violence, divorces. I don't know. We don't have this. It's still in flight what we're going through, and as such, the pain may be lived through in so many disparate ways that I cannot quantify, and that feels the pain and the anxiety and the fears, because we still don't have an outcome. The light at the end, using the metaphor, but the light is not we haven't seen the light at the end of the tunnel. So our values in society of disbelief is one that can obscure, including ourselves. And I think the alert here is, let us be light, joy, hope, faith, and let us move away the darkness to include potentially in our sorrows and our deep state of anxiety, access to perhaps obsession and falling a prey to organized mechanism for misinformation or not, but it's all together with us. So I think how can we leave our values, how we can believe our values in a society of disbelief is, let's exercise our critical thinking, but let us be healthy emotionally, spiritually, physically. Let us be healthy when health is not abundantly available. I hope this helped, to bring light to your question, Glaucio. I'm sorry.
Thank you so much. Yes, thank you. Next question. We're ready for the next question, I believe. Why do you think it took Jesus so long to bring us the interpretation of his parables? Bible readers do not believe and even call us evil with our spiritual messages. So that's came from Paula Craig again.
Hi, Paula, my friend Paula. Love your questions. So, yeah, it's a really good question, right? Why did it take so long? And I think, Paula, this is just me thinking on the fly. Is let's think for a minute our history, right? Our history. How do we learn? And how do we become what we are able to become? And if I put that history from, say, Jesus's time, and we can go into a lot of historical references here, like from classical time to what society was becoming, from a society that not until so long ago we were able to enslave people and no one would even blink an eye with the torture and terrible things that were done to people just because I was born in this area of the world versus another, right? There's so many examples of things that society allowed it to exist, that it took a long time for us collectively, even though there are some spirits, as you mentioned before, or souls, they're more advanced, right? But collectively it takes time for us to become a new society. And we talk about becoming a society in its, I don't know, financial, economical, social organizations, right? What are the mechanisms that this society as a whole, and I'm talking about the entire planet, becomes from agrarian, from a tribal to agrarian to a society of knowledge. And it's very interesting, right? If maybe, Paula, if you have not read, but I love that article or the chapter in the posthumous, I think I'm saying the word right, work by Allan Kardec. And he there's one chapter called The Aristocrats, right? And in that he really goes into the iterations of our civilizations and how we become better with time, right? So when I look at your questions about why has it taken so long for us to, and we're talking, I believe you're referencing Kardec bringing spiritism to us, right? And all this really great interpretation of the Jesus guiding principles. But I think it needed that time for us to ruminate, right? Our spirits to ruminate. As we know, in our spiritual evolution, we don't skip, right? We can only become who we are, and we, in our slow progress, it is slow, but it's forever ahead. We don't go back. That it takes us bringing ourselves through challenges and overcoming all forgive me for saying this, but the mess that we are in, all of the complexities and all that we bring in our brain and our emotions, etc., for us to mature as a spirit and become able to be more accepting. So I think it's in that realm that I would provide maybe an argument that Jesus' message took this long to be interpreted because we were not ready to do so. And I hope that we are better able, right? And in this chapter, again, right in the beginning, Jesus says, right, you may hear the words, but you don't listen to the message often. And I think this is very true to today. No matter, even with the richness of information and teachings that is given to us, many times we hear the words, but we don't listen to the teachings. So thank you so much, Paula, for both of your questions.
Interesting answer, Marcia. Thank you so very much. We're ready for our next one. Are the ones with difficulty to shine their light do they also have difficulty to absorb the light?
Oh, good question.
Yasko Arakawa.
Hi, Yasko. How are you? So it's about the difficulty to shine, but to absorb. And Yasko, I would say that actually, if you go back to that chapter, I have to tell you, if you're able to read Portuguese, both, the Emmanuel has that in PDF, but it has also in English as a book, right? So I would say, go get it, the message, if you can have access and if you can read Portuguese, do it now, because it's amazing how one chapter tells us so much. But back to what he says, he mentions that I may not be ready to shine my own light. And yes, I can be lit by others. So if we think about, if we break down the teachings by Emmanuel, right, is the fact that it's a question of readiness, right? And I would go further, Yasko, to maybe discuss the really from a psychological term, and I'm referencing now Joanna DeAngelis' psychological series, right? The entire psychological series that was by the spiritual author Joanna DeAngelis and psychographed by the medium Divaldo Franco. But in that series, Yasko, she talks a lot about that evolution of the spirit, our evolution, and specifically she makes a lot of reference, and I can talk about the book that is published in English, a beautiful book, Existential Conflict, for example, that you talk about how each and every challenge that we go through and we overcome those challenges, we grow, we evolve, right? So let us think, maybe with your question, that maybe today I'm unable to shine my own light, and we're talking about, again, from a psychological references of that book, the existential conflicts that reflect my current life, right? Maybe my childhood or my previous existences, all that I bring with me, it makes it really hard for me to shine that light, even as Emmanuel says, bring joy, Marcia. And I say, I can't, not yet, right? But we can start to absorb the light until the point that we are able to actually shine light ourselves. Yes, I hope that maybe gives a little moment to your question. But this is a very good question. I'd love to think more about it. So thank you very much.
That was a very interesting question, indeed. So coming out, we have more, Marcia.
Go ahead, come on out.
So this one comes
love
from
the
the
thoughts.
US,
Yeah, go ahead.
This one came from the US Spiritist Federation. A lot of people think they are not capable of spreading the light. How can we reassure? How we can reassure them that it's possible?
Oh yes. Thank you, United Spirits Federation, because I think this is really almost the other side of the coin, right, Yasko, with her question about the difficulty to shine or absorb in the potentially prevailing thought that not me, right? And it's often that we see, Glaucio, that maybe there's some ideas that I may not be able to do, or when I cannot do, I cannot say the words, right? But most importantly, it's too hard for me to be light. Or if I am light, but I'm unable to speak those words of wisdom, of comfort, of enlightenment, I just don't see that I have the eloquence perhaps to speak. And I say to all of you who is right now listening to this, you are capable, because you are God with a small g, right? Not the capital G, but lowercase g. You are God. And because you are God, you are light. And if you're light, we can bring the light, even if it's a small, tiny pilot flame inside of you that is God within you. We can start to feel that light, putting oxygen, putting, whatever is the fueling mechanism to shine bright. And I think if you have nothing else you can do, and Jesus taught us, right? And Spiritism really reinforces to all of us, you can be light by saying a prayer. And that prayer doesn't have to be with any type of eloquence or even memory of words. It can be just with yourself, your heart, and all that you are. All of us, with all of our inadequacies, our difficulties, our pain points, all that we bring, all of our baggage goes back to what we said earlier, Glaucio. This is the best version of me. And like that baby, that 3-day-old baby that cannot even sometimes open their eyes, completely dependent, and a mother and a father loves that child. They love the child unconditionally. So does our Father. With all of our inabilities yet to crawl, to run, to speak, to write or to read, metaphorically speaking, God, our Father, loves us. And because of that love, and because of we are that God with the lowercase g, we are light. The divine exists inside of us. So for all of us, and I put it us because it includes me, when we think, no, I cannot do this, we can, and we will. That's our mission. Thank you.
That is awesome, Marcia. So reassuring. Thank you for giving us this booster of positive energy. Yes, let's go out there and just shine the light, even if it's a little, even if our wick is not the brightest or the largest.
Yes,
Marcia, I mean, it's approaching the time. Our time here is approaching. So we have one more question for you. It's the last one.
sure.
Okay.
Hmm.
What to do when we try to enlighten someone who just doesn't care? And that one came from TV Say.
Okay, thank you, TVC. So the question is what we can do when we're trying to
To
enlighten.
enlighten someone who just doesn't care.
Yeah, yeah, they're not ready, right? So let us think about the parables. Jesus told us about it, right? Why are you speaking in parables? Because you're not ready. It may take 2,000 years, right? It may take 2,000 years for you to try to truly understand my words, and it's okay. One day you will. So, what I would say to this question from TVC is that we can be light, and that person who's not ready to absorb the light, to be light to, they may be in the shadows, and without even knowing, with our love, with our unconditional love, we can bring light to them until they're ready. So I think it speaks about our own tolerance, and this is difficult, right? It is really difficult because if we, there's another book, Glaucia, and I know we're out of time, but there's another book by Emmanuel, and I could not find it in English. So my apologies, everyone. And this book is really cool. It's if I translate into English, it's called Courage. And in one of the chapters, Our House, right? It talks about if you go back to the beginning, our candle, right? The candle in the time of Jesus, the candle was lit in a dark house, right? So if you think about, okay, Jesus tells us to lift the candle up so everybody can see, but where is the light? Where's our house? I'm sorry. And our house in this chapter that Emmanuel writes so beautifully is our mind. This is where we live, right? Our imagination, our concepts, our judgment, right? And I think this also refers to perhaps that question that you talked earlier, Klaus, about the values in society, right? So we really need to understand that it's all here, and we live as spirits what we truly project from our thoughts. He says, those are not my words, but he says that we breathe good, we breathe bad according to our mind, right? So it's really beautiful because in that small chapter, for those who can read in that language, or you can translate in Google Translate, right? Yeah, the illusion who has got it. Me, I thought about it, right? But it's really where our mind is where we live, and it's our mind that we can project light. So in that small chapter, Emmanuel invites us. It's a true invitation to cultivate, right? To turn on the light in your interior home, in your mind, and from there, as you're shining light to yourself in your inner transformation,